Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and today we are reacting to the murder of XXXTentacion. But before we do that, let's talk about who we're sponsored by. We are sponsored by eSign.com. eSign.com. It's either eSign or no one sign. eSign.com is an effective way to sign remotely, to get business done, and I use it all the time in my retainer agreements. Go to eSign.com. You get 3 free signatures a month. You download the app, use that product, because if you're in business, of any kind of business, or if you got relatives out of state, you can use eSign.com to do powers of attorney or just about any other kind of document you want. eSign.com, an effective way to remotely do business. So, now the murder trial of XXXTentacion is going on right now. Now remember, he was a huge rapper, and he was beefing with Drake. We're going to react to a couple different things. We're going to react to the video surveillance that shows him being robbed and murdered, and then we're also going to show you an opening statement from the state. So that'll kind of give you a handle on who's being charged, and they're charged with murder 1 in Florida, which means it's death penalty eligible. So let's first start with the video. Now you see the black SUV. That is the SUV of the suspects. Clearly, they're wearing gray hoodies. There's another video we're going to show you in a second that dates this one, and you see the BMW i8 there. That is XXXTentacion. Now that is getting out of the car on the right side. That is the uncle for XXX. Now what they take a Louis bag, and they take a necklace from him. Now if this is me, I don't know what his situation was there, but if you're ever caught in this situation, you just gas it and get the fuck out of there as quickly as you can. If you look here on the left-hand side, that is XXXTentacion, and he's looking right at his killers who are walking into the motorcycle dealership. Now, what happened here is, so earlier in the day, he goes to the Bank of America. He's going to withdraw $50,000. He's going to go to this dealership. Now, one of these guys, I think it was William, had seen XXX in a probation office, and then they followed him to this dealership to make sure that this was him. So now let's take a look at the prosecution's open statement. We're not going to play the whole thing, but we'll react to a bunch of it so we can kind of get a handle on who the players are. And now keep in mind that an opening statement is that's where you basically tell the story, and give the jury kind of a preview of what is about to happen in trial. It's not a time to argue your case. All you can really do is say, now, on this such and date, this happened, and the evidence will show this, and the evidence will show that, and you're going to learn about this. That's kind of the tenor of an opening statement. If you start to argue your case, you're going to draw an objection from the defense or the other side, and then that'll get sustained. So then you'll have to stop.
You're going to hear testimony, and you're going to see evidence about 5 lives that converged on June 18th of 2018, costing the victim in this case, Jaylap Onfroy, his life.
Jaylap Onfroy, that is Tentacion.
The other 4 lives that you're going to hear about are Dietrich Williams, who's on the end over there with the bow tie. You're going to hear about Trayvon Newsom, who's in the middle in gray. And you're going to hear about Michael Boatwright, who has on a turtleneck. You'll also hear about Robert Allen, who's not seated here today, but you'll hear directly from him.
Now, Robert Allen, remember, he took a deal, so he's not going to be in the trial, but he does testify later in the trial. This is the beginning of the trial, obviously, and the trial's underway, but he has testified, And he talks about in his testimony witness intimidation, which is, in these types of cases is pretty common.
He'll testify, he's in custody, and he'll tell you about his role with respect to what happened and the planning and everything that happened with this homicide. Some of the evidence that you're going to hear first starts with the day before June 18th. The day before June 18th, on June 17th, around 8 o'clock at night, you're going to hear from Tanisha Clark. Has a job, but makes side money by renting out her car through an app called Turo. You'll hear how Turo is kind of like an Airbnb, but for cars. A person can put their car on the app for rental, and someone on the other end can rent directly from the person who is renting their car through Turo. Tanisha Clark, you'll hear, doesn't know the defendants. She had no connection to this case other than her Dodge Journey.
One of the things when you have a witness that has no dog in the fight, a witness that doesn't have any kind of interest in it, it doesn't have any connection to people, they oftentimes come out very credible.
Prepared for it to be rented for one day. And so when she rents her car, she is greeted by Tony Robinson. You'll hear how Tony Robinson was very close friends with the defendant, Dietrich Williams. She was so close to Dietrich, she actually referred to herself as his sister. They aren't related, but they refer to themselves, she refers to herself as his sister. And so Tony, who rented cars before...
When you're solving a crime like this, you start at the very beginning. So we see a black SUV on the surveillance. So what you do is you back it up and you say, oh, okay, well, I see the license plate, so go to the registered owner. Now we go to the registered owner. Now you got that, the Turo, and all of a sudden, who'd you rent to it? And it's really easy to connect those dots.
Or Dietrich and his friends was asked to rent the car for one day, not because you'll learn that the defendants wanted to go to Disney World or take some trip, but you'll learn through testimony that they wanted to be able to take the car, ride around, and rob people.
So that in and of itself can establish your motive, even your premeditation.
That was their plan.
Because if you have a rental car that's not registered to you, there's the mistaken belief that they can't tie it to you. Well, that isn't true.
And so Tony Robinson, when she rents out her car, is greeted by Michael Boatwright, who's on the end here, and is also greeted by Robert Allen, who you're going to hear from Robert Allen himself. They pick up the car, and by the next day, they are out riding around. And Robert Allen will tell you what the purpose was that they were all together, and he'll say that he was with all three co-defendants, and that together their plan was to be able to rob somebody that day, and that they had all of the things in preparation for that. They had fire.
That's the other thing when you look at premeditation, plan, motive, opportunity, intent. That can all be inferred by what they have with them.
They had mass, and they had the capability of doing it. And so on that day, they drive to Reba Motorsports, and the day that we're talking about is June 18th. On that same day, on June 18th, the morning of, before the homicide occurs, you're going to hear how Jaylap Envoy, who is commonly referred to as XXXTentacion, woke up that morning, was woken up by his mom. You'll hear how he was
woken up by his mom, trying to humanize him.
And was very much a self-made artist who then rose up the ranks. He was wealthy as a result of his celebrity, and he also had a pregnant girlfriend who was pregnant with his first child, and then decided to go to Bank of America. You're going to see some surveillance from that, and you're going to hear from the teller who actually helped him at Bank of America because he was a regular customer. That morning, after going to the bank, his plan was to be able to go to Reba Motorsports. You're going to hear how he's also a regular customer at Reba Motorsports. And at Reba Motorsports, he intended on purchasing motorbikes, plural, possibly one or more, and that he'd done that before, and that was something that, you know, he wanted to do for himself and his friends. On that particular day that morning, when he went to the bank, his intention was to withdraw $250,000 in cash to be.
All right, I originally said 50,000, 250 grand in cash. That's a lot of cash to be carrying around.
The bank, you'll hear, did not have that amount on hand. And so they dispensed $50,000 to him from his account of his own money. He puts the cash in what he often carried with him, which is a Louis Vuitton satchel. Also, you'll hear how his mother that day was concerned about him going to the Reba Motorsports by himself. She wanted him to be accompanied.
She's doing an effective job of being clear and just telling the story, you know, and having it be there's not a whole lot of invectives in there. She's not trying to oversell this story at all.
A BMW i8, which we don't normally see on the road, so it's very easy to spot. It's a sports car that has butterfly doors and is very fast. And Jace himself, besides driving this very expensive sports car, is also very identifiable. Besides the fact that he's a celebrity, you'll get to see that at the time of his death, he also wore his hair in the hairstyle of blue dreadlocks. So it kind of stood out on top of everything else. And on that day, he traveled to Reba Motorsports unarmed with his, let's call him for lack of a better term, step-uncle, Leonard Kerr, to go purchase these motorbikes. And at that same time that Jace and Mr. Kerr are at Reba Motorsports, you'll hear how the 4 co-defendants in this case, the 3 of whom are on trial, traveled in the Dodge Journey to the same Reba Motorsports. And while 2 of the defendants, Robert Allen, who's going to testify, and Dietrich Williams, who's on the end with the bow tie, go inside the store to purchase neoprene masks, they spot Jace inside the store. And this is all captured on surveillance, so you'll be able to see this for yourself.
The thing about surveillance is that it can't lie. And especially in today's day and age, a lot of these cameras are really good. So having them going to get masks at the Reba Motorsports and walking right past him, that just is so chilling, number one. And number two, it just shows this preparation for the crime they're about to commit.
In addition to hearing testimony about it. And so when they spot Jace, who has the blue hair and he has a very expensive gold necklace on and his Louis Vuitton satchel, they immediately, Robert Allen and Dietrich Williams, start communicating to the 2 co-defendants, Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright, who are still in the Dodge Journey waiting for them to come back to the car.
Now, I can't remember which one it is, but one of the defense lawyers was interviewed, and he indicated that his client didn't know anything was going on. You know, he didn't know there was going to be a murder. Let's just say you're going to rob a liquor store, and you are there, and your intent is to rob the store, but not to kill anybody. But your co-defendant, you know he's got a gun, and he kills somebody during the commission of that robbery. You are just as guilty as if you pulled the trigger. So even if these guys are still in the truck and just all they did was drive there, well, we didn't know he was going to rob them. All we wanted to do was we didn't know he was going to kill them. All we wanted to do is just take their shit. Doesn't matter. You're just as guilty of that crime as the person pulling the trigger. And when you try, if you look at this, you've got the defendants just lined up here. When you're trying this case and you're all there together, you know, it looks like a conspiracy.
They spot the victim who's inside Reba Motorsports, and they are automatically spotting the fact that he's a celebrity. And so when Dietrich Williams and Robert Allen go back to the vehicle, now all 4 co-defendants are in the vehicle, and the actions are set in motion. You'll hear about the layout of the parking lot of Riva Motorsports. There's only 2 entrances and 1 exit. One of the 2 entrances is one way, and so you can't exit. And the second entrance is an exit and an entrance. And the entire Riva Motorsports has surveillance inside and out. And the parking lot is encased by a fence. And so they've
got the surveillance of that happening. They followed where he was earlier, and they've got surveillance from the motorsports, from Riva Motorsports. And so you got these guys coming and going.
Across the street, and you'll be able to see how the 4 co-defendants in the car, Dietrich Williams, who's driving, by the way, go across the street and back in their car and lie in wait for several minutes for the victim to come out. They're able to easily spot his car.
That lying in wait can also be factored when it comes to premeditation. But just so you were clear, premeditation can happen instantly.
A lot. And you'll hear how they lie in wait for the victim to come out to exit the only exit of that parking lot.
Notice she's hardly even looking at any notes. She knows this story backwards and forwards. And this is a sign of a good lawyer, when you don't even have to look at notes. I've done a cross-examination before, and I just let it take me to where I need to go. And it's so effective communication, because you're not, hold on a second, Your Honor, and you're flipping your pages. So she's being very effective here.
Michael Boatwright puts on his mask. Trayvon Newsom also puts on a mask. They have hoodies. They arm themselves with firearms. Michael Boatwright.
And you remember from the video, they're dressed almost identically.
When you're looking at the surveillance and you see 2 tall gunmen jump out of the vehicle, you'll be able to note, I submit to you, that Trayvon Newsom is one of the gunmen, and that Michael Boatwright is the other gunman. And so Dietrich Williams, driving, cuts off the victim as he's trying to exit Riva Motorsports. And as just like they planned,
The vantage point that we just saw, where the SUV pulls in behind the I-8, that is the surveillance camera for Riva Motorsports.
and the 2 gunmen jump out and immediately put guns in the victim's face and in Leonard Kerr's face. You'll hear testimony about how Leonard Kerr was able to hear what the gunmen were saying to the victim.
Leonard Kerr is the guy that ran out, and he is the step-uncle of Tentacion.
You'll also hear testimony about how Leonard Kerr ran for his life. And so as Jase is there, unarmed, in the driver's seat, surprised by the 2 gunmen in this case, you'll hear how they start struggling with him, punching him, and that both of the gunmen at one point are trying to get his property from him. They're able to wrestle away from him the satchel that had the $50,000 in cash. And without any provocation, without any type of weapons or anything being used by the victim, you'll hear how Michael Boatwright fires several times, killing the victim at close range.
The number of shots can also be used to determine premeditation, because if you just shoot at somebody in the leg, you're not intending to kill them, right? Well, intent and premeditation are 2 different things. But if you keep firing into the chest 7 or 8 times, you develop not only an intention to kill, but the premeditation that you're going to keep there until the job is done. So I'm not going to watch the rest of it, but you get kind of a flavor from this opening statement of, first of all, what a good opening statement is like. You get an absolute roadmap to this case. And here's the thing: you put all this out there, and you don't, and if your evidence doesn't match what you just said, it can be damaging to your case. But something tells me she's got her ducks in a row, and she's got these guys coming and going. And it's just sad because you got 5 lives that are lost. Really, you got one that's going to get murdered too because he cooperated, but the other 3 are going to get life without parole. Well, this is the kind of case that would be death penalty eligible, but it's got to have one of the 2 circumstances, like gang related or that kind of thing. So the state's not seeking the death penalty. But otherwise, if it had one of the other aggravating factors, it certainly would be eligible. So we'll follow this. They're kind of a week into trial, but I would suspect a fairly quick verdict, a guilty verdict, unfortunately for these young men. And my heart goes out to the family of Tentacion and his fans. I mean, this is just a senseless robbery and killing. I mean, they got the shit that they wanted. All they had to do is leave him alone after that. But they couldn't deal with that. They had to shoot him. Completely senseless. So if you are one of the guys out there who's contemplating anything close to this, and you're watching me, fucking don't. Because all you're doing is it's just such immediate, short-sighted gratification. Sure, they got 50 grand, but they were discovered like that. And in this day and age, none of you guys are smart enough to figure this out, to do this without getting caught. Maybe once or twice, but in the long run, there's so many other ways to build your life and be there for the people that you love. So this is just our reaction to the opening statement and kind of a roadmap to the Tentacion murder case. I'm Bruce Rivers. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up for Patreon. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?